October 27th, 2020. We're limiting the physical access in the meeting room due to current limitations on public gatherings. Accommodations have been made to ensure that the public is able to participate. There are a number of ways you can participate. You can watch it on Franklin TV or the City of Franklin website, or you can stream through the City of Franklin Facebook and YouTube accounts. There is a conference meeting number, 312-626-6799, with a meeting ID of 915-500-56394, with a passcode of 685317. Callers will be unmuted, given an opportunity to comment during the meeting at specific times. Limited viewing is available here at City Hall. Public may email comments prior to 4:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting to recorder at franklintn.gov to be read aloud. But tonight's meeting, there is no public hearing, and also would only be eligible during the public comment time on items not on the agenda. Okay, listen up. Here's how you can connect. City YouTube, www.youtube.com/user City of Franklin. Facebook, www.facebook.com/City of Franklin, or the city website, franklintn.gov/Franklin TV. The meeting's called to order. I'm going to call roll. Alderman Barnhill.
Present.
Alderman Martin. Alderman Bransford. Alderman Speedy.
Present.
Alderman Berger.
Present.
Alderman Blanton. Alderman Peterson.
Present.
Alderman McClendon.
I'm here.
Thank you. We show everybody except Alderman Blanton. I suspect she's having some difficulty possibly with her connection. We'll now go to the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll join Alderman Barnhill and me in the standing.
Devout please. Heavenly Father, we come to you in prayer tonight. Thank you for this day and for this great nation that we live in. For the many blessings that we have, we know that we are truly a blessed nation. And for these blessings, we give you thanks. We also ask for blessing and guidance on each of us tonight as we make the decisions that ultimately affect the city of Franklin. We ask that you give us spiritual wisdom and guidance. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number one is consideration of resolution 2020-200, a resolution declaring that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen shall meet on October 27th, 2020 and conduct its essential business by electronic means, rather than being required to gather in a quorum of the members physically present in the same location, because it's necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Berger. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? Seeing none, ready to vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Bransford.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton. Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor McClendon.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Yes, sir, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Thank you. How do you vote, Alderman Blanton?
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Now is an opportunity for citizens to make comments for items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any comments tonight? Ms. Johnson?
There is a caller on the line. If you have something to say, you've been requested to unmute.
Okay, we'll move on to item 2, which is approval of the minutes of the work session and the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for October the 13th, 2020. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Peterson, seconded by Alderman Martin. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Vice Mayor, how do you vote?
Caught me napping, yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Bransford,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to recognitions and then miscellaneous reports. Does anyone have any of those tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, and all items under the consent agenda are deemed to be non-controversial and routine in nature by the governing body, and they will be approved as recommended by committee or staff by one motion of the governing body. The items on the consent agenda will not be discussed. Anybody wanting to remove an item may request so. Tonight, we're considering items number 12 through 16. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Bransford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Bransford,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll now go to old business, and this is consideration resolution 2020-172, a resolution providing next steps related to the road network and our future land uses in the West Harpeth area, defined as the area generally west of the new section of Matt-Hatcher Parkway between Hillsborough Road and Highway 96 West. Is there a motion?
Mayor.
Yeah. I make a motion to approve
Dana.
option B
Dana.
being the selection.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Peterson. Open for discussion.
I did not hear Clyde's
What was the
motion.
motion? I didn't hear the motion.
Alderman Barnhill, would you repeat your motion?
The motion
Is
is
to
to
accept
accept
The resolution as is with option B being the accepted option.
And Alderman Peterson seconded. Now, any discussion?
Mayor,
Vice Mayor, go ahead.
let's go ahead and get this out of the way. I move to amend to reference option C, and I move further to amend to include Brownland Farm.
I second that.
We have an amendment.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, option C does include Brownland Farm already.
Okay, is that okay, Vice Mayor?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, we have an amend the motion to option C, and the motion was made by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Alderman Berger. Any discussion of the amendment to the motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Bransford.
I will be supporting the Ward Alderman motion. And he has the wisdom and the longevity on this community and this ward. So I will be supporting his wisdom on this decision. And just want to say that.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the amendment?
Sir, yes, sir. I agree with that. I will be supporting that also.
Thank you, Alderman Martin. Any other discussion?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Blanton.
You know, we started this, as with anything we do, we go through hills and valleys and ups and downs, and that's why we're a body. Everybody brings something different to the table. I think that one of the things that came out tonight is that the difference in the plan terms, as Emily stated, is probably 3 months difference. Is that correct, Emily? Maybe. I know you can't guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but probably about that.
I do think that it's unfortunate that there are people who have been working on a plan and then another plan and another plan. And I do believe that we should be open-minded enough to let people realize the value of their property. I do also know it's our job to plan for what that looks like. I am a huge fan of what the Gentrys have brought to the table for multiple decades, and have been working with them about this issue from the beginning. I do think that it's hard to dictate what goes on beyond your property lines. And I'm not going to do my cow statement, but I believe in my cow statement. Things are never going to remain the same. And it's our job to grow wisely and provide a wonderful life experience for our citizens. Dana brings up a really good subject that, you know, this will be something that we will be pinned for. And in light of the fact of you're looking at a 3 to 4 months difference to try to get it right, I'm starting to understand that might be a great way to support that. It's a hard one. I think people need to realize that this job is not easy, and it's hard to please everyone all the time. So I just wanted to make that comment.
You have a
Thank you,
comment.
Alderman Blanton. Alderman Berger.
Yep. I second exactly what Brandy just said. This is very difficult. I actually prefer in some ways that we do option B, but long term, I think that we have to get this right. I'm not sure our land use plan, after hearing Emily speak to it and everything, gives us what we need. I also have uneasy feelings just about the conservation subdivision. And I think we need to really seriously look at this. And I would ask that my fellow aldermen do the same for the east side of Franklin as well, and not just leave this as an island unto itself over here. Thank you very much. I'll be supporting option C, as of course I seconded it.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Peterson.
you know, I had seconded for option B, and I still think that is the best thing. I do want to remind people that in our zoning ordinance, we will never have, unless we change the zoning ordinance, anything that would be like one dwelling unit for 5 acres. I think the strictest that we have is estate residential, which is one dwelling unit for 2 acres. So we would not ever, as I say, unless we go through and make a major change in the zoning ordinance, be doing some of the things that the county is talking about doing with theirs. I would be okay with, doing a small area plan, but I do not see us doing anything like what the people who have been talking about leaving this basically undeveloped. I do not believe that would be possible.
Made it as option B. And again, that's staff recommendations. That also protects and gives some say to the current property owners out there who do not want this overlay, this additional layer of bureaucracy placed over their property. I did notice we did get to 1,600 acres or so on this. I suspect, if I'm not mistaken, that's only 3 pieces of property that I think this makes up that 1,600 acres. So that in itself is not the entire area that we're talking about. I wonder when a property owner has some say so in what they can or cannot do with their property. This right here, in my opinion, for what little less work, will certainly devalue the property that is affected. You can argue any way you want to. The county is out doing their 1 unit per 5 acres and this and that, whatever. What the county has managed to do on this right here, when they've done this 1 unit per 5 acres, is drive the density back into the incorporated municipalities. That's the city of Franklin.
That's us who have the sewer availability, water availability, and the infrastructure to handle the density on this. We're not, I appreciate the Gentry's and the Gentry farm, and I've got to be perfectly candid with you. I know the Gentrys and Coach Gentry when I was in high school, and he was my PE teacher in high school. So it's not something that's just new. And I've never met him. I don't know anything about him. Scott and Alan and the rest of them out there. But you have to look at the current property owners and some of their rights and some of their things. The Shorts have owned that property, I think, since 1889. So that's 130 years that they've owned it. That property, what it means to them is that families now expanded. There's probably 15 property owners that are affected. And when they do this right here, you cannot just one person control that property. And they're not asking for a great density. What they're asking for at some point in time is open space of 50%. We had one gentleman who called in and said 154 acres. The 154 acres has never been proposed. I think it's somewhere around 50 now. But even at that, on Brother Campbell's farm, they still could only develop on 25 acres for the 50 homes that they want to put out there. I just don't see what we're doing, and I think it's an unfair devaluing of those particular property owners and whatever they've got out there. And I think the Moores have probably 700 or 800 acres out there. So when Vernon's gone to these property owners and asked them, well, how much do you think going? I don't guess we weren't going to listen to the property owners and see what they had to say. So we're getting a road network. We understand what that does. We're getting the sewer infrastructure, and we understand what that does. Now we're putting another layer of bureaucracy on top of that particular area out there. That's not what I think needs to happen. And it's not as if we're putting homes on 4-acre lots out there. That's not what's happening. You still got 50% open space. Any rezoning, anything that comes out of this right here has to come back for the planning commission and the board for approval. So we've got that second option on that on any of the development that comes on out there. So I'm gonna stick with option B with a staff recommendation. I think it accomplished what we want to accomplish.
Mayor,
Alderman Martin.
I have no idea that any of the plans that have been drawn for that section out there would not be put in the small area plan. I think all that does is just allow the property owners to have a say in what they think would go out there, what they want on their property. And if we agree with it and they agree with it, put it in the plan. It doesn't mean that they can't do what they want to do. But if they sell their land and somebody else buys it, there's no way that we could stop them from doing other things to it, because there's no plan for it unless we have a small area plan. So I agree with Alderman McClendon. I think the small area plan is probably the safest way to go. And it doesn't mean that the people who live out there now can't do what they want to, as long as it's in the plan.
Mayor,
Alderman Blanton.
my head is spinning like a top. I'm sure Emily's is too. So at one point, when we were going down this road, it was suggested, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we're going to end up at the same place we started by doing the small area plan, because the zoning's already there, the land use plan's already there. This discussion will not change either of those two things. Is that right, Emily?
That's not necessarily true. I think the opinions that we heard when we drafted Envision Franklin are similar to what we're hearing now. And the property owners are still echoing the same sentiments they echoed 3 to 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And we're hearing from the greater community about preserving the scenic vistas and the historic properties and rural character. Those things have not changed since we drafted Envision Franklin. But we ended up with conservation subdivision because it compromised kind of those two different ideals. Now, that doesn't mean that if we go through this process again, that's where we end up.
I see.
If the planning commission and the stakeholders involved are, think that there is a different desire at this point in time to have more rural character, larger lots, that could come out of the plan.
Wow.
But that does impact, of course, the property owners. And I think as staff, we think that conservation subdivision is truly the compromise that we reached, and we think it's appropriate. Now, there was a statement made by one of the callers during work session that if a development is proposed on these properties, that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen wouldn't be able to change what's being proposed. That's not true.
Gotcha.
These rezoning requests and development plans will come before the Board of Mayor and Aldermen through a joint workshop. We'll go to Planning Commission for a recommendation and then go to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for final approval. And if you do not like the design and layout or the lot sizes, you have the ability to not approve that. The guidelines in Envision Franklin are a policy, that they are not requirements like what's in the zoning ordinance. And we do not have a conservation subdivision zoning district in the actual zoning ordinance. So you do have the ability to turn down a planned development if you don't think it is appropriate for this area.
And remind me, and everyone, if you will, about the projects that were already under consideration, AKA Brownland Farms and the CPS Brother Campbell development. What does option C do to their, I guess, traction?
So both of those plans under option C would be on hold. We cannot accept their submittals until the full plan is completed. And there's a good reason for that. If we are having community outreach meetings and trying to restudy the land use policy, we as staff really can't make a good review and recommendation for a plan when the policies are changing on us potentially. If you go with option A or B, it's still the same situation, but it is a shorter time frame. Option B does not impact Brownland Farm because it only includes the West Basin, but it would impact the CPS property.
Mayor,
go ahead.
Alderman Speedy.
So following up on Alderman Blanton's question, we could go through this process and the citizens could say that we want this to be all estate residential, or we want to remove conservation subdivision and we want it to be conservation with almost less homes out there, downzone it, for example. So that's my fear, and that's why I'm comfortable with option B, conservation subdivision. All we're doing is changing Envision Franklin. I think if we go with option C.
Question. Oh, go ahead.
I don't have to speak in hypothetical terms about what happens in the absence of a small area plan. Here's what happens. Brownland Farms comes in and submits and negotiates for as much as they can get. And that sets, whether we like it or not, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, that sets a precedent for greenfield development in the West Harpeth area. Meanwhile, a couple of other developers come in and negotiate to realign a road. And only a couple of property owners who have an ox potentially getting gored there. So only a couple of property owners come and show up and say what they want. But they kind of, maybe they work it out amongst themselves, or they get the best outcome they can get among the 2 or 3 of them. But that realigned road inevitably has consequences in the area beyond the number of property owners who were participating in the negotiation to realign the road. For example, there's a east-west road that appears to me to be across the Livingfield Moore property. I cannot imagine how that road doesn't get impacted if it stays on the major thoroughfare plan. I don't know how that road doesn't get impacted by the shifting alignment of another road to which it apparently connects. So in the absence of a small area plan, we have one property owner after another coming in to negotiate what is best for them. And we deal with them one at a time, and we say yes or no to various concessions that they would like. We don't know necessarily very well what kind of lift stations or sewer pipes or water pipes. We don't know necessarily what kind of road alignments might make sense if we had sat down and done one comprehensive plan. So I say again, I'm not advocating for this to backdoor some downzoning or dilution of property owners' rights. I said it privately to one of the directly impacted property owners. I'll say it publicly now. In my view, if we approve a small area plan going forward, the property owners whose property is subjected to it have a front row seat. They are in literally the front row for the next year for the conversations about the outcomes here. I will be happy to listen to the other stakeholders, but they don't have the same stake, whether they like it to admit it or not. So this is not an end run to dilute or devalue the property. With all due respect to Alderman Barnhill, in many ways, we might actually be protecting the value, because the more people that move in and around this area, the more people will show up and say, approve nothing. So I would imagine that in a year, the rights that these property owners have would be more concrete, more specific, and further solidified rather than less. Now, not everyone's going to get what they want, but we've already set the zoning in Envision Franklin at the lowest that it can go under our prevailing zoning ordinance. So I don't imagine that we're going to end up devaluing the property. I still say that our highest obligation is to get this right, and I don't know how to get it right or get as good a result as we could otherwise get by dealing with one property owner at a time and negotiating with one property owner at a time. So I'm going to support, obviously, option C.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Alderman Berger.
Couple things. Emily, will the small area plan, since it's planning the area plan, Envision Franklin's planning, wait a minute. Am I here? Okay, there's something going on here. Sorry about that. Envision Franklin's a planning commission document. So my question is the small area plan a planning commission document, and will the alderman have any vote or say on it?
We haven't really talked about the actual process. It is ultimately approved by the Planning Commission, but normally what we do with these types of plans is we send them to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen first for a recommendation to the Planning Commission, so that the board's involved all the way throughout the process. And we do have a final say from the board that the Planning Commission will understand and know going into the vote.
Well, I have a problem if I'm voting for an area plan, and tonight we're arguing for or against the small area plan, and yet we ultimately will have no control over that plan as a vote. Is that correct?
I mean, normally that's how the process goes. We haven't talked internally as staff about changing that process from the usual, but that is how it goes.
I don't know how we vote on that if we don't have that clear answer tonight, because I think we are voting here for this body to weigh in on this. And if we're weighing in on this and coming up with option C, Dana, you're the one here that has thrown this out for option C. I seconded it. And if we're going to have a small area plan, we need to have a say in that. We need to have a vote in that. The other thing
Normally
is
the issue with the, Shauna might can weigh in on this a little bit, but if the board approves the small area plan, which is usually would be adopted into Envision Franklin, any amendments from that point forward all have to go to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. It's no longer really considered just a strictly planning commission document from that side. And it's almost more like legislation at that point. It gets a little tricky in the way it's worded in state law. I think we'd have to research it a little more. But the reason we kept it a planning commission before is because it truly is a policy document when it's approved by planning commission.
so do we need to defer this tonight to our next board meeting to get some of these answers? Because honestly, I want that answer before I take my final vote. So let me make a recommendation. I would like to make a motion that we defer this for 2 more weeks. I've got some other questions that just came up here tonight, and it's obvious to me tonight that we've had a lot of questions by the aldermen on this. And I'm not sure everything is so clear cut that we understand it. This is a complicated vote. Dana said it, Brandy has said it, I've said it. I think all of us agree with that. So I would like to make a motion that we table this, that we bring it back in 2 weeks and get a few other questions answered, because I'm not sure that we would have those answers tonight.
Alderman Berger's made a motion to table this till the next meeting. Wait,
I'll second that. But what I want to know is, we're just deferring.
unmute.
You know, we got to get this. We're deferring it, not tabling it.
Deferring it, I'm sorry. Correct.
Second.
What did Alderman, okay, you seconded, but I didn't
All right.
hear what else you said.
Is there any discussion on deferral to the first meeting in November? Is there?
Mr. Mayor, does Shauna have any comments tonight? Does Shauna, our attorney, is there any comments she can make tonight?
No, I would need to research that and talk with Emily.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I have a question. Is this a up and down one vote and we're done, or is there more votes to come on this subject?
We don't defer it, then we'll have to go to the
Sir?
My interpretation is if this motion passes to defer, then this matter is over for tonight and we'll move on to item 5.
Right, I understand that. My question was, if we voted tonight, is that the one and done vote, or is there a second? Thank you, Eric. I see your head. Thank you.
I got you. Any other discussion on the motion to defer? Are you ready to vote?
Mr. Mayor, may I say something? The land use plan and the major thoroughfare plan are only planning commission documents. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen may have input, but they do not ever vote on them. However, to do anything though, the items property has to be rezoned, and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen has the final say on that, and you do not even have a reason to deny. There are some things on the Planning Commission that if it fits everything, you're supposed to have to pass it. But for rezoning, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen can make the decision to rezone or not based on just whatever they wish to do.
I had a request by staff to make a comment about the sewer, and I know it's not on the motion to defer, but I'd like to ask Mr. Girth to make his comment quickly about that.
Thank you, Mayor and Alderman. Deferring is a good idea, but I did want to bring up that the new sewer for the animal control center does go through the Short property and the Campbell property to the West Haven pump station with West Haven has property there too. So we're seeking to get permission for utility easements to get that sewer and to allow the county to install that sewer. And this is part of this conversation because the decision impacts the Shorts and the Campbell properties.
It just gets worse and worse.
It does.
Well said,
Well, it's going to
Margaret.
get even worse because I'm ready to call for the vote if you're ready.
I do believe we need some answers to these questions.
Okay, is there any other comments on the motion to defer?
Does the ward alderman have a comment on the deferment? Because it's really, he's has his ears to the ground.
I said that the difference between 9 months and 12 wasn't that much. I'm certainly not going to advocate that the difference between tonight and 2 weeks from now is all that much either.
Well said.
Okay, you ready to vote?
Yes.
This is the motion to defer until the November the 10th Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. Okay, we'll start out with Alderman Barnhill. How do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Bransford,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
No.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McClendon,
Yes.
passes 7-1. Item 5, consideration ordinance 2020-28, an ordinance to amend the budget of the city of Franklin for FY 2021. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank
Second.
you. Seconded by Alderman Martin. Any discussion? Ready to vote. Vice Mayor, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Bransford,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 6, consideration resolution 2020-208, resolution authorizing condemnation for the acquisition of right-of-way and easements for the East McEwen Phase 4 Improvements Project. Is there a
Move.
motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Berger. Was there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Peterson. Any discussion?
I do have one question. Eric, is this condemnation being brought by people who were happy with their appraisals and were going to accept them? Is that the ones that I don't know what's going on here? Is that
This is our standard practice. We typically provide for this as a last resort in working through the property acquisitions, but this is not necessarily related to any individual situation, but we typically establish the authority to go to this if we have to. We try to work through all the different arrangements and agreements with individual property owners short of that, but at some point, if we have to go to condemnation, this gives us the ability to go down that route.
okay? So we're not talking about it. Okay, an individual. Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other comments? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Bransford,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 7, City of Franklin Contract 2019-0235, a warranty deed with DPH Franklin LLC for property acquisition associated with the McEwen Drive I-65 ramp modifications project at a cost of $32,000. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Oh,
Thank you,
second.
Alderman Berger. Who was seconded?
I'll second it.
Oh.
Randy had it first.
Alderman Blanton made the
Yes, sir.
motion, seconded by Alderman Berger. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Bransford,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Item 8, consideration of City of Franklin contract number 2019-0377, agreement for dedication of easement with DPH Franklin LLC for property acquisition associated with McEwen Drive I-65 ramp modification project cost of $10. Is there a motion?
I move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Berger. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Bransford. Any discussion? Seeing none, ready to vote. Vice Mayor, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Bransford,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
and is there Alderman Barnhill?
Yes.
Did I miss anybody? Passes unanimously. Item 9, consideration resolution 2020-205, resolution to reject a request from Boyle Investment Company to reclassify a roadway within the Chadwell development as a collector roadway. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Appropriate motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Martin. Any discussion?
The motion is to reject the request.
The request, yes.
Mary, could we have staff address like the Kimley Horn email and just, I guess, the definition of collector roads and why they're, I guess, saying it's very subjective?
I'd be happy to give a brief overview. My opinion is that it's not subjective. It's clearly outlined in our major thoroughfare plan, the roads of regional significance of which we feel benefit the overall service area. It's been that way since my time here in the city of Franklin. While we have standards associated with collector roads as it relates to roadway design, again, we're looking for roadways that are providing regional benefit. In this specific case, the Chadwell Development Road is meeting what we believe to be minimum standards. While they may choose to build it per a higher standard, it's simply providing the necessary connectivity as required in our zoning ordinance. It's a very dangerous precedent to set to approve this road as a collector road, and what that will result in is every other development coming in and asking for their roads to also be included and funded, and that do not also serve as a regional benefit to the overall service area. So, and there are other examples such as, Huff Ridge Road is a great current example with multiple developments there. It doesn't provide the regional connectivity that our collector roads and arterial roads need to provide. And so there'll be many, many more of these requests. And so because it doesn't provide that regional benefit, we recommend disapproval of it being classified as a collector road and approval of this resolution. But the Kimley Horn email or letter that they wrote says that it's not predictable. I would argue and say it's very predictable. If it's in the major thoroughfare plan, it's included in the capacity analysis, and those are the roads that the board is choosing to put their funding towards. Happy to answer any more questions that you have.
I guess my only follow-up was the 2010, they referenced that, the thoroughfare plan, where they say there it was classified as a minor collector.
So with the impact fee analysis, it was done in 2014. And so in 2014, they used the current major thoroughfare plan that was in place, which was the appropriate thing to do at the time. And then when it was updated, they used it as well. in 2016. And then the major thoroughfare plan got modified because we had been going through a 1.5-year process of trying to update the major thoroughfare plan. And we looked really critical at what roads we believe to be providing that regional benefit as part of that. Now, there is certainly a nexus between the major thoroughfare plan and the impact fee. I'll say over the last 3 or 4 days, I have spent looking at those impact fees and what the change would have been had we updated the impact fee based on the new major thoroughfare plan. My evaluation of it shows that the impact fees would have gone up dramatically based on the calculation. And that's one of the reasons why with any type of impact fee, with any type of utility bill, you reevaluate those on a 3 to 5 year basis because there are so many factors that go into determining that. Another factor that goes into determining that is the amount of federal funding that we receive. So in years that we receive more federal funding, it could actually decrease the impact fee. If we don't receive a lot of federal funding, it increases the impact fee. So it's very, very important, as we move forward to continuously evaluate those impact fees to ensure they're proportionate and fair. And the impact fee analysis seems to be the best way and the best method to proportionally share those costs of regionally beneficial roads across the city and across multiple developments.
Mayor. Mayor.
Alderman Martin.
I appreciate Paul's explaining that. And when Jim Duncan was here the last time, he complimented the city on keeping up with those fees. And so if they need to go up, we certainly want to do that. But now Greg and Adam, they made good points with their presentation, but I will have to go with our engineers because that's our job. They are the professionals. They're our professionals, and I will go with them. If that's what Paul thinks, then that's who I'm going to support.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Peterson.
The thing that I think of here is that this road as planned would connect Lewisburg Pike through Stream Valley to the road, that it's coming out of. So it, in some way, Goose Creek, thank you. But it does connect to, arterials, I guess. Any comments to that, Paul?
Yeah, if you look at Stream Valley Boulevard, if you look at the curves in it at the entryway, it's not designed to collector standards. It's got driveway cuts every 100 foot. It's designed to be a low volume, low speed road. I believe that if we had an opportunity to revision the major thoroughfare plan in this area of the city and we could remove Stream Valley and some of these other developments, it would be totally different and we would try to get a collector road down here. But the fact of the matter is Stream Valley has been approved and developed and it doesn't provide a regional benefit to anybody. It's simply providing access to the development and providing the minimum connectivity that we would require in our zoning ordinance. And that's just where it is today.
Well, I was thinking of somebody who commuted for very many years, and if there are cut throughs, and this would actually cut you off of the Goose Creek, Lewisburg intersection there. I could see how there would be people using this as a cut through. But anyway.
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
When this project was designed, was it contemplated and approved that the developer would pay road impact fees on the road that we are now talking about?
At the time this development was approved, there was not a collector impact fee, if that answers your question. It also, at the time it was classified as a collector road through their development, we had the flyover over I-65 and flyover or underpass. It was contemplated both ways, but it connected you over to Paytonsville Road to provide that regional connectivity there, and could have been designed that way at a higher volume, higher speed to help move traffic from one side of the interstate to the other side of the interstate. But that overpass has been removed from the major thoroughfare plan. A lot of the pattern books that were originally approved within the multiple quadrants of Berry Farm, were done so wanting very narrow sections with on-street parking and multiple business accesses. So there were a lot of reasons why we started to remove these from the major thoroughfare plan, because they were really being installed not to move regional traffic, but really to just provide connectivity and access to the businesses in that immediate area versus regional connectivity.
Thank you, Mr. Holson. I'm going to support the staff recommendation on this. In a bigger picture, here's my concern. It appears to me that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen has now been put into the position of acting as an appellate body to review the staff's recommendation on this issue, and that somehow we've now been tasked with dealing with this for over an hour at a work session, and now as a voting item tonight. And I don't want to be in the position where, when a developer is unhappy with staff's recommendations or decisions, that some of them do and some of them don't somehow wind up getting an hour and a half of our time. Either we let them all come and protest and tell us that we should second guess staff, or we really shouldn't be having these conversations at all. I would prefer not, but I definitely don't want to be in the position where it could matter. It could depend upon who asks and who asks who, whether they get this, what's now turned into an hour and a half long conversation at our Board of Mayor and Aldermen. On an item like this, I would suggest that perhaps, in the absence of an alderman sponsoring the item, it shouldn't be on our agenda at all.
Any other comments? You ready to vote?
Mr. Mayor, may I say one other quick thing? I believe that we had collector impact fees once upon a time, McClendon, and then they were taken off, and then they were put back on again in 2010. So it might just be that if we take off the collector impact fees again, then we won't have this problem.
Okay, any other comments? You ready to vote? Okay, Alderman Barnhill, how do you vote on the request, Resolution 2020-205, a resolution to reject a request from Boyle Investment? How do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Bransford,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 10, Resolution 2020-181, a resolution approving the project partnership agreement, City of Franklin contract between the Department of the Army and City of Franklin, Tennessee for the Harpeth River Flood Risk Project Management Project. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Blanton.
Second.
Second by Alderman McClendon. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Bransford,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 11, this is a City of Franklin Contract 2020-0041, professional services agreement with Orchard, Hiltz, and McClement, Inc., doing business as OHM Advisors to design new City Hall facility. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Martin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Bransford. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Vice Mayor, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Bransford,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Alderman Vice Mayor McClendon. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Berger seconded. Okay, ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Bransford,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McClendon.
See ya.
Adios.